All right, now we're going to do the bum bow. Open up those two pieces, and you're going to want to put the right side of the fabrics together. I suggest pinning it together rather than just trying to sew it, because this is the satin and it's really slick, and so it'll slip everywhere. Okay, so after you've pinned it all the way around, you're going to want to remember that you can mark it however you'd like, if you want to turn the pins a different direction, or just remember whichever is going to be most helpful to you. But you're going to want to leave that space unsewn. Don't sew this part. All right, so if it doesn't, if it's not all even, it doesn't matter because it'll get fixed on the machine. Again, if you just have a regular sewing machine, just use your normal stitch on this one. But with the overlocker, you're going to sew it straight down the line. If you are using a sewing machine, you're going to, when you cut it out, either allow for the extra 5/8 for your sewing machine, or just remember just to sew along that edge as closely as possible. Remembering that this is satin and it will start to separate, the little threads will start to separate. So maybe reinforce it a couple of times with your regular stitch. And then just sew around it. Okay, so I've nearly sewn all the way around it. Remember that you need to leave this little space here, and usually about 1.5 inches to 2 inches is good enough. That's where you're going to be turning the fabric inside out, or right side out rather. And then just make sure that you trim off any extra threads or anything so that they don't bulk up in the bow. Okay, once you've done that, then you're just going to flip it right side out after all 4 of your sides have been sewn together. Now, very carefully, you can use the tip of your scissors, you can use a knitting needle, you can use a pen that's been closed so that the ink part is not showing, and just gently push these corners out. Now I'm just going to grab this extra little piece that I've cut out. Do it with the right side of the fabric out, so fold the back of the fabric together so that the shiny side is on the outside, the right side of the fabric is out, and then sew down the edge. Alright, now once I've sewn up this side, again, just trim your threads off, and then this is the tricky part. It's not very tricky, but what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to open it up flat like this so that that seam then goes down the center of it. And we're just going to do it this way because this is the notch of the bow, and it just makes it easier so you're not having to flip open a thin piece of fabric. And then lie it flat and pin it down on both ends. Make sure that that seam is going the same direction on both ends. You don't want to have one flipped out turning that way or anything, so that they're both the same length, and then you're going to sew those ends together. Make sure that that seam stays flat. Okay, so I've sewn up both edges of those. Just trim off all of your threads so that when I turn it over this way and put it across the bow, it's going to just lie nice and flat. We don't want to tie it into a knot or anything around the bow so there's no extra bulk coming out their back sides. So it's just going to be a flat piece like this. You're just going to take these edges that you left undone and just gently fold them over. It's going to fold over to that width of the serger stitching. Can be a little bit tricky because it is slippery fabric, so just be patient and gentle with it. And then with just your normal stitch, you are going to sew down just the very edge of it. Just put it on maybe that first line on your foot if you have one, but just the very edge of it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take our piece that we sewed before, and we're going to fold your bow in half so that you can find that middle. On this piece, it looks like this line is right down the middle. There's just a bit of a fold in it. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to just baste a stitch down the center of our bow. So a basting stitch is just your largest stitch so that you can gather it. Remember not to reverse on them, and then you can just pull it out, trim it off, and then I just tend to, for this one, you can just tie a knot at this end of the bow, and then you're just going to grab one of the threads at the bottom and just very gently ease the fabric together. And make sure that you don't want to have like some of it folding in. So as you're pulling it, make sure that it's even. If you need to, if it's starting to fold on you, just grab the under piece of thread that you have left and just give it a bit of a tug so that it can catch up with the rest of the thread. And then if you want to, then you can tie a knot at this end as well. Just gather it to about like this, because if you need to gather any more, then with this piece we can fold it over to where we need it to be. And then just trim off your excess thread. Okay, now what you're going to do is you're going to take some thread on your needle. I like to double up the thread all the way down just to give it that extra bit of strength. Tie a knot at the end, and then you're going to grab your piece that you sewed before, and you're just going to wrap it around. It will overlap, that's fine. Again, we want it to be, it's on stage, so we want it to be obvious, but we don't want to have it overhanging. So if you do end up having it a little bit too long, you can just re-stitch across there, cut off a little bit if you want to, or you can fold it over, fold it under like this, so that on the other side you want to have at least an inch showing this way. And you can either just loop stitch it. I like to just put the needle through that part, just secures it a little bit more so that the thread doesn't go through the fabric, and then just do a few stitches. If you want, you can go all the way across, you can go up here securing all of the threads, or all of the fabric rather. Make sure that your seams, you can see here I'm just kind of fixing the seams up so that they are out, so I'm not folding up my bow. And to secure it, just kind of catch a little bit of that fabric underneath as part of the bow and sew it to that. That way this little knobby thing, the middle part of the bow, is not going to slide around. And then just tie it off. And then do it again on this side, the same thing. Finish it off. And that's what your little bum bow should look like.